Hi, folks. Welcome to the webinar. I'm Sam Bogoch, CEO of Axle AI, and we will give people a few minutes to join the call. Look forward to having a good discussion. Also, the webinar will be recorded, so please keep that in mind in terms of questions and so forth. Looks like there's a pretty good turnout today, maybe because of our Dropbox announcement last week, so excellent. You can type your questions into either the chat or the Q&A bubbles at the bottom of Zoom if you are logged in on your computer as opposed to dialed in on a phone. So feel free to submit questions there. And like I say, I'll just give people another minute to join and then we will get started. Thank you. So I'm Sam Bogoch, CEO of Axle AI. I am joined today by Patrice Gouttebel, who's our VP of Product Management, and Katie Scott, who's our VP of Operations. And we are here to answer questions in general, anything about our company or the offering. I will also be talking a little bit about our new partnership with Dropbox and why we think that's important. So maybe I can lead off with that, and then hopefully we can field questions. In between those two things, I'm going to ask Patrice to demo our latest product, which is called a Scribe. This is new software for the Mac and for Windows. Previous to last week, we had a version of a Scribe that was a plugin for Adobe Premiere on Mac and Windows. And that was already doing fairly well for us, both as a marketing tool and as a way to onboard new customers. But it was clear that we could reach a lot more people if we had it as a general purpose app rather than just sit inside of Premiere. So we still have the ability to interface with Premiere, but these new versions of a Scribe essentially supplement the Premiere panels that we already had for both Mac and PC, which of course are the two main platforms in the kind of video creative industry. So yeah, let me talk a little bit about the Dropbox relationship. And as I say, then I'll hand it over to Patrice for a demo, and then we can do the Q&A from there. So a few months back, and I think this dates back to about December of last year, we started to have conversations with Dropbox about how we might be able to both help them and be helped by them in reaching the widest audience for our products. Dropbox obviously has many millions of customers worldwide. They also, just by the way, also last week announced their first ever quarterly profit with very strong growth in both revenue and net revenue. So, congrats on that. So as they've grown, Dropbox has become a very straightforward go-to option for people sharing media files. And almost everyone we work with uses Dropbox at some point. They may not be like hardcore Dropbox users with, huge amounts of files there or their primary workflows, but quite a few of them are. There's also some occasional users, and I would say there's a minority of our customers that don't use Dropbox at all, but certainly the majority do. So we were aware that this was a pretty good fit. And the other interesting thing about Dropbox is that they are seeing some competitive pressure from purpose-built platforms that are designed more specifically for video sharing. People like Frame.io, for instance, or Vimeo, which in some ways operate a lot like Dropbox, but are much more expensive to use and have these dedicated video features. So at some point last year, Dropbox decided that they wanted to do a media and entertainment launch that would highlight the uses of Dropbox in a video context, and that they would look for a short list of partners to complement what they had to say. So they reached out to us. There are actually 5 other partners, each doing a different part of the workflow. And so when it became clear that they were aiming to do the launch, originally it was going to be tied to the NAB show in April, but as you may know, that got canceled, of course, due to COVID. So the time frame became a little more flexible at that point, and they ended up announcing it last week. So once they gave us that time frame and we brainstormed what to do, like what would be the best high-profile integration we could do between Axle and Dropbox, Patrice came up with the idea of this integration between the Scribe and Dropbox, and also kind of bumping up our existing Premiere panels to full-fledged Mac and Windows apps. So they kind of signed off on that earlier this year. And for us, it was actually a pretty intensive process. Patrice and the development team especially, just getting this thing not only ready vis-a-vis the Dropbox integration, but also ready to ship as a standalone app on Mac and Windows. And our team did a phenomenal job actually to get this thing done with not a huge amount of time to spare. So it was really a great effort. And now we have these 2 apps. You can see the result of this at ascribe.ai. And it's generating more traffic, not only at that site, but also for our main axle.ai website. And I think the bigger picture is, establishing this idea that tagging your content, and especially getting transcripts in on top of the video content, is an extremely powerful way to get started with making your content searchable. So we expect it will lead to further opportunities, particularly with our flagship product, Axle. And so we've already seen a little bit of that in the early going with the Scribe when it was just a Premiere panel. The first few weeks we put it out there, we had some very high profile signups from people that in the long term look very likely to become Axle customers. So whether they just sign up for a Scribe and pay for the monthly or hourly subscription revenue to us, or do that for a while and then realize that they want to move up to something a little more comprehensive, either way, it works very, very well. And it certainly has helped a lot the perception of being partnered with Dropbox, which is really a huge industry leader in the cloud sharing space in general. So all of those things have worked out very positively. I will say that we have to be fairly cautious about the immediate revenue consequences. Like, it all sounds very big and glamorous, but the actual revenue stream from this type of product for us, it's a small minority of what we do, and we expect it to grow very nicely this year. But even so, it's still going to be most likely less than 20% of our overall revenue. So, I think it's important to view this as much as a positioning exercise and a statement about where we want to be as a company and where we want to take our clients, as it is like some kind of immediate tactical win on the revenue side. So with that, I will hand it over to Patrice, who can demo a Scribe for you. I think you're going to demo it on the Mac. Is that right, Patrice?
Yeah, this is correct.
Yeah. Okay. So, but a version is also available for Windows.
Correct.
And again, hats off again to the team for developing both of those in pretty close coordination. So over to you, Patrice. Thanks.
Thank you, Sam. Just confirming first that we can see my screen.
Yep.
Perfect. Already, so a Scribe is actually a standalone app. You do not need a server like Axle or Connector. You do not need any of other tools. The goal for this app is to be a freemium where then the user will simply sign up to either buy blocks of hours that they can use then to transcribe their footage or audio files, or they subscribe to a monthly fee where they get X hours, and whatever is not used, whatever minute is not used, is then going to be a rollover to the following month. And of course, we have the integration with Dropbox, which came at approximately the same time that we released the Scribe. So how does it look? Well, on the left side here, I will have files in my Dropbox. And this video, for example, was processed from another machine. So another machine with the same account in my Dropbox was able to play the video, get a transcript going. So if I click on this video, which has not been transcribed, you have the transcribed option right here. We have also the option to be outside the cloud. So if I go here locally, I have, for example, this GoPro footage that will be shown. And you will not have the transcript in here, but we do have the transcript here on this one, where you will see it's actually the Scribe and Dropbox demo, which is basically shown here. And you can just easily go and edit your transcript. So how will that work? Well, let's actually bring a file here. And just for fun, let's take this actually SNL skit just for fun. So I can drag much more file if I wanted to. But my goal here is to actually just do one file just to speed up the process. I can choose a language. We have 6 different languages: English, Spanish, Korean, Russian, French, Italian, and Portuguese. Pick the one that I am interested in. I do find that if you have a mix like Benedict Cumberbatch with a British accent and everybody else with an American accent, using the American is actually much more accurate than using British. So we are going to use the American because we have a mix here. And I will hit transcribe. And as you can see, the first thing we do is we're actually extracting the audio here, so from the machine. Now, the cool thing about Dropbox, if you were to use Dropbox, the cool thing is you would not need to export the audio, because we send directly the stream, the video stream that you use in the preview, to be transcribed. Once it is done, we're simply getting the transcript done. The Axel service that we use for speech is starting to process as the file is being uploaded. So the real limitation is your upload speed. So this kit was about, I don't know, 2 minutes, maybe 2 minutes and a half. And you saw that in a couple of seconds, I already have my transcripts.
You're watching the Game Show Network. At 5, it's
You have the claps on here that you can actually bring up. So once you edit, you can play at different playback speed to edit. So I can play at half the speed. That will help me to actually edit without pausing the video at all. And I can, of course, use the tab key or the enter key to actually come along. So I can press enter and continue to edit. So once you're done, you can simply go ahead and export. And you have different formats. You have SRT, which is the gold standard for caption files. You can use it in editing or any video player. ITT is dedicated to iTunes. So that's the only difference you will see between Mac and PC. Is if you're using the version on Mac, you can export a version for Final Cut Pro 10, which on PC, Final Cut Pro 10 does not exist. And Final Cut Pro 10, for those of you who do not know, it's the video editing solution provided by Apple. There you go. Or you can export a text file. So here I can choose with or without timecode. What is a timecode? It's simply the time reference of each block of text. So I can export one without timecode, and I will say game show, save. And right here, I have my whole text available. If I were to check this one here, you will see that I have the whole webinar that I saw earlier shown right here, ready to be actually used as minutes. If you had actually a Zoom call or GoToMeeting recording, you can just send that to be analyzed and processed. And this is it. So organized by date. Whenever I actually process them, it is organized by date. And for Dropbox, you just find the file that you need. And the transcript in Dropbox are stored inside Dropbox so that I can go in different machines, whether it is Mac or PC, and retrieve my transcript. And that has been a quick overview of a Scribe. So it's free. You can download it. You have 60 minutes available. That's what we market. We provide the tool with 60 minutes for people to try it out. And we hope that it will actually bring interest in renewing the subscription or buying on-demand hours for transcription. With that, back over to Sam, and we can see if we have any questions.
Thanks, Patrice. That was great. So far, no questions. So please, now's your chance to start peppering us with questions, either business or technical. or possibly more general about the state of the industry. There are a bunch of very interesting developments over the last couple of months. And so obviously COVID is a huge factor. We did put out a success story with one of our customers, American Public Television, about how they were able to use our software to go to a distributed workflow right when the initial restrictions hit around going into the office and travel and so forth. So they were able to use our software very effectively to make that migration. And we've had a number of customers approach us, new prospects approach us for the first time just in the last few weeks because of that potential. So first question from Joe, what additional new products are in the pipeline? Well, actually, we've just done kind of a clean sweep of the product line in the sense that we came out with the two Scribe products, Mac and PC, last week. Prior to that, we did the 2020 version of our connector product, which is the workflow tool. And about a month prior to that, we did the 2020 release of our Axle AI flagship product. So at this point, we have pretty much cleared the decks in terms of, let's say, product roadmap for the short term. We actually had a product roadmap meeting this morning to start figuring out what our priorities would be for the next 6 to 9 months. And it is actually a good place to have that conversation. We have not made any announcements or commitments yet, so it's a little hard to say. I will tell you, based on this morning's call, that there are some significant upgrades we're planning to Axle AI, our flagship product. And some of these are new integrations, others are new features. But I think that's pretty clear. We're also going to be generally working in the direction of scalability. So wanting to be able to handle larger repositories of assets and larger storage systems. So overall, that's a broad theme. Patrice, yeah?
Yeah, just one point as to what was done for the release of 2020, both for Axle and connector. Our emphasis was really into making sure that our current customers and new customers will have the possibility to work remotely. We already kind of started a dabble into it. So one thing to note is Axle is meant to actually be on premise. And by that we mean that if I am a video production company, I will have in my storage system all my B-roll, my footage, and everything that I need, and people will be nearby to edit videos. So we call that on premise. Video is so heavy, you cannot really do it online or anything like that. So what we have done is integrate with existing solutions from Adobe with Premiere and other transcoding tools and other internet security companies to actually allow people to remotely access their server. So I am from home, my video production company is still over there. I do not carry all the footage because there are way too many. How do I still access my stuff there? Axle is over there, my footage is over there. How do I access it? We have made a plan with the monthly subscription fees where basically I can just go in and continue to work on my Axle system simply from my web browser. Because Axle is accessible from the web browser does not mean that it is on the internet, but this is how I will access it anywhere. So doing that. Now, Adobe Premiere has also the possibility to do editing from lower version of the videos. It's not the full resolution, but lower version, which allowed me remotely to edit the video. And we have integrated with that, allowing the person to search an Axle and grab this proxy so I can edit, but yet trigger a render on the high res. So I still have the full quality. I can continue to work from home, and whatever I produce is rendered back in the company in the high res. These have been the main focus for we had because of COVID-19, and we anticipate to continue to walk into how can we actually make the process of working remotely better, because we anticipate actually that not everybody is going to go back to the office anytime soon. despite some easing in restrictions. With that, Sam, back to you.
Thanks. No, I think those are good points. And I will say this broader theme of remote access, it was kind of a nice to have feature of our product through the end of last year. And then it's gotten to the point where almost every conversation we have with a customer features that highly. So, you know, what we thought was just like, oh yeah, it's a good checkbox or something, has become the central point of many of our customer conversations. And it's understandable because the video industry was really built up around, until very recently, just sneakernet, people handing each other hard drives, sitting in edit studios, looking over each other's shoulders. You know, the over-the-shoulder edit session is still a thing, where you have like the producer and then the editor and the assistant editor all sitting there looking at physically the same screen and the same keyboard. And obviously all that has been blown to bits. So we mentioned in our crowdfunding page that there's about 300,000 teams worldwide doing this kind of work today. Those teams have all been spread to the winds and are all working remotely. There was a degree of that creeping in before, but now it's almost 100% remote. And we've never seen an abrupt shift like that. So our biggest challenge and our biggest opportunity is to go out and market the fact that you can actually do this now, and you don't have to hand each other hard drives, and you don't have to come in and sit next to each other to get effective edits. That's a really, really big selling point, and we expect it will drive our business for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Any other questions? And by the way, we've made this a weekly standard thing. I think we're going to bi-weekly potentially, but if there's a question that you don't think of this minute and you wish you had asked, please feel free to email me at sam@axel.ai or Patrice, which is patrice@axel.ai, and we can field those questions in between calls as well. But any other questions that we can answer right off the bat? By the way, it probably goes without saying, but our raise is inching up towards the $25,000 target. So if any of you have invested, thanks for that. And obviously we appreciate any help getting to that finish line. One of the nice things about it is that Republic starts to market the campaign when it hits 25K. So everything we've raised up till now has been a little bit under the radar. But once we hit 25K, they'll do the proper e-blast and the messaging and all that. So we're sort of in the home stretch here, and we expect to, I would think, cross 25K either end of this week or sometime next week, which will be a big thing for us. And there's still about 2 months left on the raise. So during that time, and with the marketing help from Republic, I think we should do very well. The other thing I should mention is that Patrice and I did do a pretty in-depth Q&A with the Meet the Drapers show. That was shot back in November. So some of the things that are being talked about today were not yet real. For instance, we mentioned on that show that we're working on Mac and Windows client apps under a code name, but obviously those are now out as a Scribe. Nonetheless, except for that one small detail, everything that's in that video is still directly relevant, I would say, and so I would recommend it. There's a link on the Republic page, and I think we also did a tiny URL link to it as well. But you can just go to the Republic page and click on the Meet the Draper segment. I think that the tiny URL was like tinyurl.com/DraperAxel. So if you go to tinyurl.com/DraperAxel, in fact, I'll type it into the chat session. You can see that video. All right. Well, I think we're in the going once, going twice phase of the discussion. So let me just type this in right now. So are there other questions we can answer this week? And thanks, Joe, for that excellent question. But any others that we can respond to? Going once, going twice. Okay, well, I think with that, we'll, oh,
The link did not
oh,
work.
Joe said the link did not work. Maybe it was Axel Draper now that I think about it. Patrice, can you just check?
I am checking right now.
It's Axel Draper, not Draper Axel. My bad. Hang on a sec. Let me make sure.
Good. Let's bring on the next.
That would be okay.
Let's bring on the next. Our next contestant. But before we do, let's see if.
Okay.
There we go, Joe. We have to correctly. Oh, both Simon.
It's a tie. Okay. All right. Very good. So at least we corrected that before sending people off. But again, feel free to email us with questions in between these calls. It's been a great process so far, and we really appreciate all the interest, not only on the calls, of course, but on the site. There's a Q&A section there as well, so more questions welcome. All right, well, thanks very much, and have a great week, everyone. Hang in there and stay safe.
Thank you very much. Bye.